The Marsh Boys Podcast is brought to you by
Papa Earl's, Cajun seasoning at its best. Use it on chicken, beef, fish, vegetables, Bloody Marys, and everything in between. Check out their fish fry for that perfect golden crispiness and that great Cajun flavor.
and Top Down Decoys, the most affordable silhouette decoy on the market. Their horizontal and vertical styles are both a perfect fit for adding numbers to your snow, speck, and Canada spread.
You can check out all of our great sponsors through the link in any of our social media bios. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hey, take it!
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Marsh Boys Podcast. I'm Brian,
I'm Ryan.
and today we are joined by Joe from 609 Fishing.
Pleasure to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, have you seen, well, let's just say, how's the fishing been so far this year?
It's been probably one of my best summers I've had in a while. The plethora of fish around seem to be like higher. We usually get a decent striper run in the fall and the spring, but it's really extended into the like dead heat of summer, which is kind of unheard of. Like, at least where I'm at in South Jersey, we get a really decent population of like local stripers that stay around. But it seems like there's been bigger ones staying around longer, which is awesome because, you know, last week, mid-90s, I'm out on my kayak in the middle of the day in like one of the worst possible tides, catching like slamming stripers, like literally in the middle of the day. Boats blowing by me, and you know, it's one of those summers like I don't want it to end. Like this past week by me, a lot of croakers started to push into the back bays, which are fun to catch. Good bait, good to eat if you can get them big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Are they good eating? I've never caught them and ate them before. I've only caught them and used them as bait.
So if you get them like Cape May specials, like the 8 to 18 inch plus, they actually fillet out pretty well. They have these pin bones, but the bigger ones, I make them into fish cakes. So by the time you boil them, all them bones fall out anyway.
Yeah.
But the meat's pretty good. I'd compare it to like white perch.
Yeah. So, just for example, up here, like I've only ever seen them like 3-4 inches in size, like, and that's basically it. I don't know if they don't come this far up or what.
Yeah,
See,
we're up by like the mouth of the Delaware Bay. That's where we're fishing.
okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I was gonna say we get the variety too. Like 2 weeks ago, the real small ones, like the perfect bait size ones, moved in. Just the other day, I took my daughter out with like her perch rod and like some crappie jigs, and she was catching like some decent sized ones on the ultralight, which, you know, just fun to catch.
Oh yeah, it's like us going and catching bluegill. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Now, what do you think is causing the striper to stay around so long, in your opinion?
I think it's the food source. They say a lot of their movement is dictated off of water temperature. Like if you follow it in the early spring to the beginning of the summer, like On the Water magazine does a really good like art depiction of like the migratory bass and which direction they're going and where they are. And it's interesting to see them go up the coast to find that cooler water. But I also think they follow the sand eels, the menhaden, bunker, stuff like that. Where we are situated on the coast, there's a ton of bait fish. Like since May, man, like the bays by me have been loaded with peanut bunker. I started to see some mullet around, which is a little early for them for my area, but the water has gotten warmer. There's a ton of crabs. A lot of the stripers that I noticed that we're catching now, like I'm catching a lot of stripers as bycatch, going for sheep's head or tog, because they're feeding just like those two species on, you know, structures that hold a plethora of blue crabs, fiddler crabs, mud crabs, sand fleas, stuff like that.
So you mentioned earlier you've been taking your kayak out a lot. I have, watching your videos inspired me to kind of get out and try something new, and I really had to pick my day because I only have a 16-foot Johnson or a 16-foot Alumacraft with a 30-horse Suzuki on it. Do you have to be very picky about your days as well with a kayak, or do you kind of know?
So honestly, no. So 5 years ago was when I really got into kayak fishing, like pretty heavy into it. Before that, I have a little skiff that I've had since high school. I just repowered like 13 years ago. Runs like you couldn't believe. Perfect back bay boat. But when my daughter came along, I found that my time windows to fish were really short. So I was always into fishing, and I wanted to try something different. So I invested in like an old town PDL, like the pedal drive kayaks, which I never even knew really existed till about 10 years ago. And the nice thing about them, honestly, I would go every day during her nap. Because, it's like a 2 to 3 hour window in and out, and I could throw it in my truck, make a quick drive. I'm lucky. I live like 3 minutes from a bay, like a local bay.
Nice.
I live 5 minutes from a river and about 9 minutes from the beach. So in every direction, there's a body of water I could fish. But one thing I learned having her, you can't really pick and choose. You just know that time window each day is, 2 to 3 hours. What I found was growing up, I would only fish certain tide windows because I was under the belief that, only this tide produces this many fish, or, this is the better tide. And one thing I learned in the last 5 years is, dude, every part of the tide, there's something you can catch.
Okay.
And what's nice, like I'm kind of an idiot. I'll go out on the kayak in bad conditions. Like a couple times this March, I probably shouldn't have been out there when the water's like, low 40s. You're in a dry suit in an open bay getting crushed by like 2-3 foot waves. Hell, I was out on my buddy's kayak about 5-6 miles off the beach in Pompano Beach in January looking for sailfish. So there's not really that video's up on YouTube.
That's not gonna pull you around.
So it was a sailfish tournament. It's like extreme kayak tournament that they run down there. They have a sailfish one in January. In June and August, it's like more king mackerel. But those guys down there, you think we're crazy up here. Those guys are going like dozens of miles off the beach, chasing the swordfish, sailfish. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a cool experience.
I don't think they're catching fish. I think the fish are catching them.
But you'd be surprised, man. Like, I seen last tournament, the guy got a like 500-600 pound swordfish from a kayak, which is
that's nuts.
If you have the right tackle and you have your drag set right.
Yeah.
Now I watch a guy on YouTube called Kayak Catfish, and he catches like 60 to 70 pound blue cats off a kayak, and I think he's nuts.
Yeah, I like his stuff too. You get a different perspective from him. I liked his videos when he was down in the Keys doing saltwater stuff.
Oh, I haven't seen them.
Yeah, it's cool to see like that switch. But to answer your question, honestly, if I get a chance to get out on the water, I take it, even if the wind or the tide's not right. The nice thing I found is like I'll look at the wind direction before I head. Like recently, we've had like a lot of bad days of like 20 plus, 30 plus gusts. But if you could find an area that's sheltered by the wind, especially in the back bay, it's pretty simple fishing. Especially if you're doing bridge fishing and the wind's coming out of a certain direction, you can use the bridge to block it. And,
that was really, really nice when I went. The wind was like 12 mile an hour. Now getting it back across the bay that I went to, that was rough. But like while we were sitting there fishing, moving from pylon to pylon, like it was really nice because the wind was getting hit by the bridge, and I mean it may have been 3 mile an hour hitting us anyway. You know? So that part was really nice, and that was the first time I'd kind of ventured away from where we normally fish. Like we catch a lot of channel cats, 3 to 7 pound channel cats. That's our shtick when it comes to fishing.
We're simple swamp billies.
And it feels so taunting going out and doing what you do. I'm for somebody that doesn't live around there, that's never done it before. I'm looking at a map because it's hard to get down there and do it, and I'm like, man, where do I go?
And if it makes you feel any better, I feel the same way. A couple years ago, I got into the snakehead craze. And the nearest like snakehead fishery, at least to me, is about 50 miles west, like near.
Yeah, it's probably near us.
Yeah, like the creeks that flow off the Delaware River.
That's where we catfish. Yeah.
So for 2 straight weeks, I was making this hour drive every night. And like the first week, literally hooked maybe 5 or 6 snakeheads in that week, could not land one. And the same thing, man. Like I'm driving all this distance. I'm like, I have no clue where to go. I'm not a huge freshwater guy, but like, I've done it. But that learning curve is definitely there. The biggest thing I've learned is like watching people on YouTube and trying to take, the techniques that they're using and try and emulate them. Because a lot of it's technique, honestly. I know finding the fish is one thing, but if you're not presenting the bait or you're not presenting the lure in the right way, I'm learning, that's 90% of the battle, it seems like.
Yeah, that's why I don't like bass fishing. I like throwing a chunk of meat on a hook and waiting around and catching something. Which,
seeing that, I was gonna say that's like the same with me, man. That's why I got into the bridge fishing so much for like tog, sheep's head, triggerfish, because there's always something there. Don't get me wrong, I grew up flounder fishing. I love flounder fishing, but it's not as exciting as fishing crabs and hunk of meat on a jig.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but on the subject, I mean, I watched your videos and I'm like, I want to do that. I went and bought bottom sweeper jigs. We went and got sand fleas. I rigged my line up, just kind of judging at what you had, and I'm like, man, we're going to go whoop some tail. And I think we may have had some nibbles from a blue crab.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, it's a little more daunting than I thought it was going to be, but it's something I want to get into. It's something that really intrigues me, is getting out and my dad was a big flounder striper fisherman, and I never got the chance to do a whole lot of that stuff, so it's something I want me and Ryan to do together.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to ask. Sorry.
The nice thing about those jigs is I use them for catfish all the time.
Really?
Up the river here, yep, I'll throw one of them bottom sweepers on with like a chunk of bunker for the cats, because we get we have a decent white catfish population, channel cats down here. Mm-hmm. Nothing huge, but
yeah,
still fun on a jig.
Oh yeah.
We wanna go up at some point and do Ernie the Hog Snatcher.
Nah.
On Instagram, look him up. Oh my, he's around the DC area, I think, and the catfish he pulls out of there are insane.
Yeah, I think they fish the lower Potomac, and same thing. It's a different breed. When you hit the Potomac and all that, you're catching them 60-pound flatheads, and it's different than our 3-pound channels.
Yeah. He actually hit a goose casting one time.
That was pretty funny. Yeah.
By accident.
Really?
It was the middle of the night. You can hear it honk.
But go ahead.
I wanted to ask before we get too far off of it. With snakehead, have you ever gone bow fishing for him?
Bow fishing, yes.
Yeah.
Not for, not per se for snakeheads.
Mm-hmm.
So end of August, I do a little bit of bow fishing by me for like white suckers.
Okay.
That's probably the closest thing, because the regulations here. Like, there's only certain fish you could really.
Yep.
I've thought of bringing them out in the ocean, because there's always these huge schools of bunker.
That would be kind of cool.
You bring like a weighted treble hook to snag them for bait.
Oh,
and I was thinking, man, I could just sit here with my bow and just shoot a few. But my fear would be like when you're trying to retrieve the bow. Most of those bunker pods have like cobia, sharks, other predators under them. I'm like, I don't know if I could reel it in or get it in quick enough before they get taken away.
Yeah.
All right. So you brought this up, or you mentioned it. I am a huge shark nerd. Is there a big shark population in New Jersey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Way bigger than. What's funny though is when you read all these news articles that come out about, like, there was one close by me, the Press AC is like the nearest paper, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
And they put out an article about 15-foot shark spotted 20 miles off the coast. And like, I don't know how that's news, man. Like, I work out on the ocean. It'd be like saying, like, you went out to a baseball field and there was dirt in the infield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's sharks everywhere. I think what people don't realize is how close they are to the beach. Now, north of us, where it drops off a little bit steeper off the beach, you definitely see bigger, more predatory sharks closer to the beach. Where I'm at, it's kind of like a shallow drop. Not to say I do a lot of surf fishing off the beaches by me. The most I see size-wise is like 6 to 8 foot, like sand tigers, sandbar sharks.
Okay.
But the only thing that's a disadvantage where I'm at, typically you got to have a kayak or some type of method to get the bait out past, the area, because there's a lot of sandbars and gullies near us that are real shallow that those big predatory sharks hang just behind.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I mean, I watch the guys on TikTok use the drone or they kayak it out and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's definitely a big, and it's funny, I know down in the Delaware Bay, like Cape May area, they do a lot of sand tiger shark fishing.
I was just say that's one of the biggest pupping grounds or breeding grounds for sand tiger sharks is the Delaware Bay, I believe.
Yeah. I see guys every day posting like huge sharks that they're getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're fun to get. But my big thing, I try not to really, I've tried not to target them from the kayak because it's like, could be like a nightmare trying to de-hook a shark.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't want to cut, like, I see guys that will cut the line, and like I'm not trying to leave a shark with like 8 feet of line and a hook.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think it was a week ago now, there was a guy, and I'm sure they're there. I mean, just like you said, guy sees a shark 20 feet off the coast. Yeah, obviously, there's bears in the woods, there's sharks in the ocean.
Yeah.
But I think it was around a 15-foot great white the guy got a picture of off the shore of Cape May, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to me because I don't think there's a whole lot of sightings of great whites. I mean, I could be completely wrong about that, but
from what I understand about them off our coast is most of them are usually in transit.
Going up to Cape Cod or stuff like that.
Yeah, from what I understand up there, it's become a bigger issue because of their seal population.
Yeah.
Where we don't really have, not that we don't have the bait or the forage for them. I don't think that it's enough for them to sustain themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So...
I'm done with sharks.
Dude, Shark Week came on. That's all he was doing was watching like shark videos.
It gets me going. I don't know why.
Oh, we get the local dogfish that everybody goes nuts
I don't even consider them a shark anymore.
Yeah.
So we messaged you on Instagram about sheep's head, obviously, and I know you talked about it on your podcast from 2021. I don't want to repeat all the information there, but with where you are now and it being a few years since then and there's still no regulations, what would you say would be good regulations to keep them around? What do you think would be a good practice?
Honestly, I've never been a huge regulation guy. My thing is that the only thing that bothers me is like it does seem like common sense isn't as common with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the people that catch like a trophy sheep's head and they're excited they want to keep it, but a lot of those guys don't realize like those bigger fish are like the breeders. And in my opinion, sheep's head are good to eat, but the big ones I would never harvest one of them huge ones. The smaller ones, in my opinion, like the 16 to 20 inch range fish, they're usually the better eating sized anyway. But it's like one of those common sense things. Like I've seen, for the most part, I'm like I said, I'm usually out on the water almost 7 days a week. And I interact with a lot of guys that fish for them. And I would say a vast majority of them are very conservative when it comes to them. A lot of them are catch and release guys. Every once in a while, like a couple summers ago, I ran to a spear fisherman who had about 20 of them on a stringer. And the worst part was the kid that was shooting them was just dumping them on the beach when he was done.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
That to me, like, that's why I like that. That's the type of stuff that drives you nuts. But for every one person like that, there's probably like 50 people that actually enjoy that species and want to preserve it for the future. So I'm not like one of those crazy, like, I don't want to go to Congress. I don't want to go to the state to try and preach. It's not my place as a person, but
you just want to see people be respectful.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't freeze fish. I'm very fortunate where I'm at. If I want a fish meal, like especially in the winter, I'll go out and catch white perch. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I'd rather have fresh fish than freezer burnt flounder from 3 summers ago.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So basically, what I'm gathering is kind of take the same, common sense as stripers. Like, you don't take the big ones. It's like the ones in the middle. If you're gonna take one of them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, man. If you're gonna take it and eat it, who am I to tell you? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will say, I do a lot of underwater footage. I haven't put it up yet because I'm kind of behind on editing with my work schedule. But I just invested in like an underwater, kind of like an aqua view, like what the ice fishermen use.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, the
You know what I mean?
sensors, or
It's
the
got
camera.
like the camera attached to like a little screen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's some of the areas by me that are so loaded with fish that it would take a lot to wipe out a population, in my opinion, especially like how difficult they can be to catch.
Oh yeah. If they were there, they weren't biting that day. I can tell you that much. Or they didn't like blue crab.
They see, and what's funny, the fishery up here. So a lot of the sheepshead, to be honest, a lot of what I learned about sheepshead, my buddy Dave got me into years ago, and he taught me like the techniques that he learned from Dan Schaefer, the guy who created bottom sweeper jigs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is, so that was like my initial introduction to sheepshead fishing, kind of like, here's what you should look for, try this. But what I found was that works. But if you watch like the southern guys, like North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, they get sheepshead pretty much year round down there. And their fishery, what techniques I've been trying up here, I've actually learned from southern guys.
Okay.
In fact, one of my buddies, Abram, he lives in North Carolina, does a ton of sheepshead fishing down there. We kind of bounce a lot of ideas off each other, and I'll ask him like about his fishery and certain things he looks for, because I think one of the things when you think about up here why a lot of people weren't doing it, I don't think people knew they were there. I don't think, what I mean? Like, if you knew they were there, and especially if you know how they fight, the only way I could describe their fight is like a striper and a triggerfish mixed together. Because you know how a striper will give you that good, like, 1-2 minute run where they're just giving you everything and running.
I've seen it, but Ryan's never caught a striper.
I've caught
have
a
you?
striper on a guy, but not around here. That was in Maryland.
I only caught a little.
So the stripers down here this time of year, whatever, with the word temp being what it is. In fact, my video that's coming out tomorrow is a prime example. Most of the bass I catch are like 29 to 33 inch class fish, but they're like taking these 1 minute runs of just peel and drag, running directly down vertically. Sheepshead do the same thing, but they almost have like a second gear. And like kind of like triggerfish, they're more of the way their body streamline, they take these real hard cuts, which makes it fun to fight them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I had to pick one fish, the sheepshead's probably my favorite from like a light tackle perspective, that like getting your money's worth of a fight.
Yeah, that's what I like about it is the first thing that caught my eye is you're using I'm assuming a medium or a medium light rod with like a 3,500 reel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
brought
that's
cobia
what I love
before.
about it. I love going and
Is
catching.
the cobia fishery
Like when we
coming
catch
back
catfish,
in
7 to 10 pound catfish.
Has
I'm
it ever
using
this
left
rod?
or it's? I love that kind of fight.
I think
Where,
it's
you're
never
still
left.
using
I
enough
think,
tackle to bring them
like
in,
much
but it makes it fun.
of other fisheries, certain
back
years
to
you
your question
remember.
about the blue
Okay.
crabs.
And I know in the last 4 years,
I
the
do find
cobia
that it
fishing's
works a
gotten
little
better
bit
and
better.
better here, or if it's just I'm realizing it. I do think to an extent, a lot of stuff becomes more relevant because of how prevalent social media is. You
Yeah.
think back to when we were kids, like your best bet of finding out if fish were around was talking to your friends that were out, or local tackle shops, or reading the local reports. I grew up reading the local reports of fishermen, and now, like, with everything being so digital, you could scroll through Instagram and watch somebody's like 40-minute fight with a cobia that happened 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But down my way, a lot of the cobia fishing I notice is based off of the bait. At least where I'm at, it's a simple fishery. You're just running and gunning up the beach, find some bait, and you're kind of seeing if anything's underneath of it. The last cobia I got was, I don't know, a few miles off the beach here. It was under a school bunker, and we were pitching just 3-ounce bucktails. Something as simple as that, past the school and just kind of retrieving it through. And we didn't get any huge cobia compared to like some of the bruisers they're catching now. Like, but the back to the social media thing. I never knew about other areas fisheries until social media, YouTube, stuff like that. I didn't realize how big the cobia fishery in the Chesapeake was.
Really?
Like, yeah, like the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel.
Okay.
Is like one of the best hot spots in the summer down that way. And which is crazy to think, like you and I in our smaller boats could be catching these fish if we, lived in that area. Whereas we don't get the cobia that close, at least close enough in the back bay where you could take a smaller boat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was going to, that's more of a, like, is that even a thing you can do surf fishing, or do you have to be pretty extremely lucky to get one from the surf?
From here, it's extreme luck.
Okay.
Usually the fish that push that close in are strays. Like, you don't see them push that, like where the surf casters down here are getting them. Every summer, though, I always randomly will see a post of a guy who caught one off the beach, but they're never like the monsters that they're seeing like miles off the beach, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're more like the juveniles.
So you brought up social media being kind of like a tug and pull. And obviously, and I think everybody's perspective, depending on what industry you're in, social media can definitely be a big yin and yang. Do you think the positives outweigh the negatives as far as social media and YouTube and stuff goes?
It's hard to say. I think it's more of a like double-edged sword is really the best way
Fair
to put
enough.
it.
Okay.
I think social media can be good. Think about like you and I, the three of us would not be having this conversation without social media.
That's
You know
fair.
what I mean?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and not saying that we would never cross paths, but I think social media does open up a lot of doors, but I also do think there are parts of social media, like if you notice in my videos, I get this all the time from people saying you need to tilt your camera up. Or, oh, great, another video of looking at your feet. Look, what people don't realize is my GoPro catches everything. I edit a lot of the background out. I have like hours on hours on hours of footage that will never make it to social media, YouTube, Instagram, stuff like that, because I can't edit out the backgrounds, or I can't, you know what I mean? And there's too many discernible features that
Yep.
would give away an area. Not that areas are that big. I do want to try and preserve that, My whole thing is everything that I know I've learned from going out on the water and learning myself and talking to others. You can't replicate that with someone giving you GPS coordinates.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone sheep's head fishing and there's 3-4 kayakers and a boat right on the same pilings or the pilings right next to me watching me catch fish. And I'm not some, fish god, but they're looking at me like, man, why can't I catch them? I'm fishing right here. I'm doing the same thing. But it's one of those things you just got to learn. You know what I mean? You got to
I agree 100%.
put the hours in.
Yeah, I agree to the fullest on that.
And I'll be honest, I do like social media in the sense that I've met a lot of good people from it. Branched out, learned a lot of different things, fishing techniques I would have never learned from guys that I probably would have never ran into or talked to because of just the sheer location of where they are. So I do think, if you had to lean aside, I do think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. I do think there's guys that are a little too much over the top. Like the whole reason I got into honestly even doing the YouTube videos was I enjoyed fishing, and when COVID happened and it's all you could do really, you know what I mean? Like everything else was shut down.
Yeah.
I was like toying around with the idea of just filming it. But I don't know if you've ever like scrolled through YouTube. Drives me nuts. Like I stopped clicking on videos. Like as I gotten older, I've kind of narrowed my watch window because there's so many clickbait videos.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
insane.
That to me is like the most shameful thing. Like the you won't believe what I caught, and
The
you have to
silhouette.
watch 20 minutes of this guy trying to sell you on the banjo lure or whatever
Yeah.
lure.
The banjo minnow.
And like to me, I was like, there's got to be a better version. Like when you watch back in the day fishing shows on Sportsman Channel, Outdoor Channel, ESPN, they're showing you catching fish.
Yes.
They're not spending 40 minutes telling you why you should buy the lures and click their direct link so they can get a commission. You know what I mean? Like, and my thoughts were, I could do this better for actual fishermen.
Yeah.
People that want to learn something rather than people that just want to be entertained by somebody that's fishing Twizzlers or McDonald's. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, the McDonald or the fast food challenges and
The only challenge I ever did, and I wouldn't even call it a challenge. It was like a 24-hour like fish 24 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, straight.
Yep.
I flew into Florida. I literally flew into Florida with a fishing rod and a backpack and some lures and fished literally from like 8 in the morning till 9 in the morning the next day, hopped on a plane at 10, flew home.
That's awesome.
You were probably really tired by the end of that.
Dude, I was delusional by like hour 20.
Now,
But, it was cool. It caught like 26 different species in that time. Like, and it was in the middle of the winter here where, there's good hunting and there's good perch fishing, but that's about it.
Yeah.
did you expect your, like, the social media and YouTube thing to grow into what it was? I understand it was a passion project, but were you gunning to make a large audience like you have, or it just kind of happened naturally?
I'll be honest, the size of following to me means nothing. The money you make off of YouTube, unless you've got millions of followers and you're getting millions of views, you're not making a living off of it.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I actually like to keep a lower profile. Like it is funny. Like I'll be out in public and, if randomly will be stopped by people asking me if I'm 609 fishing, and I just laugh. I'm like, nah, I get that a lot though. Like, cause I don't want to be some, celebrity. I just want to teach people, what I know and hopefully help them catch some fish.
It's funny because a lot of my coworkers, I work up in PA, and a lot of them actually, I was like, oh yeah, 609's coming on this week, and they were like, no way, I watch him. I was like, what? That's crazy. But we all learn a lot from you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And where I it kind of made me take a step back. Like, and I'm not like big in any means from a following perspective, but I was in Jacksonville fishing 3 years ago and was on the beach and got to talking to this guy who was fishing next to me, and he's like, wait a second. He's like, are you a YouTube guy? It's like, I think I watched your video on how to catch sand fleas. And he was going off, and it's funny. It's like, you're 900 miles away from New Jersey, and some guy actually saw your video, and like that's when I was like, wow, it's kind of crazy the reach,
It was wild. So before the podcast host that we had, you couldn't really look up all that many stats. With what we have now, we've been able to look at like how many. It even boils down to the counties that we're in. We have been in, I believe, 45 or 47 total states and like 7 different countries. Like, it is wild, and we don't have a very big following at all. We're about 2 years old, and it's just nuts that with the little bit of attention we've received, it's spread out that far.
Yeah,
And I think
it's crazy. And you would never know. Like, you guys, I see do a lot with hunting, and I guarantee you get a lot of followers that are going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, typing in specific keywords, and this pops up. And that's how honestly, a lot of the podcasts I listen to are guys from down south that never met, never heard, never watched, but they had a video or a podcast about something I wanted to learn about. And it's just kind of crazy how small of a world it could be.
Yeah, I find that more in the fishing podcast deal. And I think that's mainly because I don't know a lot of, I guess you could say, like the bigger name people. Like, I wouldn't know who to go. If I wanted to learn about, let's just say cobia fishing, I wouldn't know who to go look for, I would probably just search cobia fishing and listen to a couple podcasts till I found one I liked.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll be honest, the reason I accepted coming out to talk to you with you guys was, I'd rather talk to you two than be on some famous person's show. You know what I mean? Like, you guys just like me, we're, probably around the same age, have the same interests. And that to me means more than how many followers you have. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I appreciate that a lot. It means a lot.
It does. We've found, through doing this, we found a lot of the dudes in our space, a lot of the people in our space, they're all really good dudes, and we're all out there trying to do similar things, It's not about being big, it's not about all that. It's about learning, meeting people, having cool experiences, and doing what you love to do.
Yeah, and it's even better when we get to shine a light on. I've said it. This is now our 96th episode, and I've probably talked about it in 70 of them. There is so much to do in New Jersey that it is unbelievable. We're talking about cobia fishing in New Jersey,
Oh yeah,
and
it is crazy how diverse this state really is. Like, and like most people that aren't from here don't realize, like, they think of New Jersey, they think of like North Jersey. They don't think of the South.
They think I should have frosted tips.
And it's funny too, because if you go west of me, like Route 40 out to like Cowtown area, like that, you would never think that was New Jersey.
That's where we're
That's
at.
us, yeah. That's where we're
you know what I
from.
mean? Like, most people would never expect New Jersey to look like that.
Yeah, so you know what's funny? When we talked to friend of the podcast, Joe Cermelli, and first thing he said was, "Brian, where are you from?" I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm Salem County, born and raised." He goes, "No, where are you from?" I said, he goes, "Well, what did you?" I said, "Oh, you brought up Cowtown." I said, "I rode bulls at Cowtown for 7 years." And he goes, I can see that just by talking to you.
Have you ever seen the real map of New Jersey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're on the line of, I'm on the line of swamps and toxic waste in pretty much Alabama.
It's nice out there though. I do like, I travel out that way a lot because my wife's family's from like Eastern PA.
Okay.
And so that's the way we go. But I like that. Like, I like how spread out it is. It's quieter.
Yes.
I mean, where I live, I know like down by me, it's a little bit more densely populated, but it's still pretty nice. Like, it's still quiet in certain areas.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about the this could be a hot button topic, so if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But the Pennsylvania Army coming down every summer, does that affect your fishing and all that?
Nah, and you know what? I know it's funny. So I was born and raised New Jersey. I actually grew up in Atlantic City, a little city slicker. But I can't get mad at somebody for wanting to do something that I wanted to do. That's the funny thing. Like, a lot of guys I know in fishing get real upset when they see boats, fishing areas they want to fish. And I think some people don't realize that just the perspective of that person that's out there is doing exactly what you're doing.
Yep.
What makes it different? You know what I mean? Like, why am I so special that I'm the only one who could fish? You know what I mean? So, like, do I like sitting in traffic? Absolutely not. I absolutely hate traffic. I mean, can't stand it. But, being from South Jersey, you realize that Saturdays and Sundays you're not going anywhere far.
Yeah.
And if you are, you're not coming home anytime soon. Yeah. But, no, I don't get. And that's the funny thing. Like, it'd be the same if I went, west to go to PA for trout fishing. You know what I mean? Like, technically that's not my area, but I want to go explore a creek. Who is that person to tell me I can't fish there?
Yeah, that's a really level-headed way to look at it, honestly.
I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I hate crowds. I really do. Like, that's why a lot of times if you see me fishing, I'm fishing like extreme hours, like 4 or 5 in the morning before work, or tides or weather that people don't like to fish. But I never get mad at the PA crowd. And people don't realize that those people that come down here do supply a lot of our economy during the summer.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, the flow that comes in through the boardwalk and just all that is included in the shore and shore houses and stuff like that. Yeah, I get it.
So I work on a boat 7 days a week in the summer, pretty much May to September. And, like, without that population that comes down in the summer, like the boat don't run every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, trust me, I felt like I was the a-hole running in my 16-foot John or my 17-foot John boat with a 30 horse doing about 25 mile an hour, and there's a 30-foot or a 25-foot Mako behind me just waiting on me to kind of cut into a side ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like that guy we talk about sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you got to realize that on the water, man, nobody should be in that big of a rush.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unless you're chasing, seagulls that are diving on fish or birds. I don't know. I'm kind of a little slower when it comes to that.
Yeah, it is a different scene than a hunting scene. Just like you said, if you show up to a bridge and there's 3 kayaks, you're probably still going to fish that bridge, depending on the size of it. If you show up to a duck hole and there's 3 sets of decoys sitting out there, if you don't turn around, you are the a-hole.
Well, and it's funny that you say that. In the wintertime here, I'm probably one of a handful of guys that go fishing year-round here. The boat ramp by me every winter when I'm going out is all duck hunters, and it's funny. I've gotten to the point where I know where most of them are going, and I'll actually take the long way to avoid where they are just because I know how it is.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you.
And I don't want to be that guy that's blowing by and blowing all these birds, out of these creeks and the little, ponds that they're sitting in.
Yeah, now trust me, we definitely don't mind you guys running through the bay.
Yeah.
We like when them birds jump up.
Some came up on the screen.
It's just my power notification. We're good.
There it is. So, this is kind of off subject now, but do you do any hunting, or it's just fishing year-round?
Growing up, I used to love hunting. I've gotten away from it. I lived in West Virginia for a few years, and I did it out there. But the only thing down where I'm at, unless you know somebody that owns land, duck hunting's different, but the deer hunting, unless you know somebody that owns land, it's kind of tough down here in the Publix, I've made the mistake. I've never knew that the local refuge near me does pheasants on Thanksgiving Day. And I never knew that. And the one Thanksgiving, I randomly thought let me cut through this refuge to get to the river that I normally perch fish. And there's hundreds of guys walking in, orange camo. It looked like a Walmart. I couldn't believe it. Because I'm how does nobody get shot? People are just, I couldn't believe how many people were in the woods right next to each other.
Yeah.
Now, granted, just using bird shot and they're shooting pheasants that were just stocked. But I do hope, in the near future to get into it. The thing that kind of always pushes me away from it is in the wintertime, perch fishing by me, if you're not going out once a week, you could really lose the pulse of where those fish are.
Oh, okay.
And I find the free time I've had now in the winter is 2 days typically a week, and if the weather's not right, you might not even get that day. But most of the winter weekends, I'm out perch fishing.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But I have a son on the way. In a couple weeks, I'm gonna have a son, so I'm
Congratulations.
definitely get back into hunting for his sake.
There you go. That's a good excuse to get back into it.
Yeah.
So, when you're going that now, I know we kind of touched on. What is your preferred setup for everything back? I see you do a lot of the slams. A lot of your videos is the midday back bay slam, something like that. What rod and reel are you taking?
Right now, I've kind of started to move away from what I used to fish a ton of Redbone, which just a small mom and pop company down in the Florida Keys. That made these flats rods for tarpon, redfish, snook, and they work perfectly up this way for stripers, bigger flounder, sheepshead. They actually stopped producing their rods, so I started to move to Jigging World, who's based out of, I believe, it's either North Jersey or New York or somewhere in the Northeast up here. I'm actually ashamed I've never been there. I know that they're kind of like Tackle Direct or
Okay.
Tackle World type
Yeah.
company, but they make Jigging World rods that are like what I typically use right now is a Nexus. It's like a 7-foot medium spinning rod. I try to keep. I like Shimano reels. I know everyone has their own company they support and love. I've been fishing Shimano since I was like 12, and
Yeah.
the reason I actually liked them a lot over other companies was I used to work in a marina bait shop growing up for about 10 years. So you're spending a lot of time around like Shimano, Akuma, Penn, you know, Venor, just these different brands. And what I found was just from talking to people purchasing stuff, people returning stuff, Shimano seemed to be the best from a dollar standpoint, like getting the most out of a reel. They also do, in my opinion, they've had a very good warranty for their reels. They back their stuff. Anytime we ever had reels come in that were defective from them, Shimano's reps were really good about getting that person, or a replacement reel, same exact one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like certain brands like Penn. I used to love Penn before they sold off. And they went the cheap route for some of their reels.
Yeah.
Although I've heard recently they've came back. I know a lot of guys trying to remember the brand name. Daiwa's a big one that a lot of guys like swear by.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point in my life where if something isn't broke, I'm not trying to fix it.
You could spend a fortune on rods and reels if you
Oh,
wanted to
I've
keep
learned.
up with what's going on.
But what you see me in my videos, the only reason I go 7-foot rod, it's easier to walk a fish past the bow of the kayak.
Okay.
So if I have a few 6-foot rods that I love, I love them for fluke, I love them for sheep's head. But I learned if you look back, I think it was 3 years ago, I did a video. It's like NJ sheep's head fishing where I caught this like 30-inch, like close to 30-inch sheep's head, like humongous sheep's head, double digit on this 5-foot spinning rod, and this thing just had its way with me. Half my rod's in the water, half the battle, and like I'm just trying to slow this thing down. And that fish made me realize like I can't really use this small rod on the kayak because if these fish do have a tendency to run back and forth, and if you can't walk it past the bow, the line's going to run right into your drive, and that amount of pressure could just pop the hook out of its mouth or you snap the line.
Is that why I see like every time you hook up on something, you're backing away from the pylons?
Especially around bridges. Any type of structure like that, those fish are so smart. That's the first thing, especially Tog. They try to run right back into it because they know they can break the line off or they know they can try and knock the jig out. That's the beauty of, honestly, I get a lot of people asking me, like, why do you pick your kayak or why do you pick your boat? If I'm sheepshead fishing from a kayak perspective, there's nothing really better than that because I can control where I'm going. I know guys use trolling motors and spot locks and stuff like that on their boat, but you really can't replicate the, hands-free of using your feet to push you away from that structure and guide that fish. Especially like you'll see in the video tomorrow if you watch it, dropping, it's at 5 o'clock. It's a striper video. I'm fishing knocker rigs with sand fleas. And those fish, man, as soon as they grab it, they're like instantly trying to run down and into the pilings. And you'll see I'm pulling them away, and just once you get them away from the bridge, I'm fine with them running as much as they want because I know that they're not going to get to anything that's going to get me like hung up.
Yeah.
But like that first 5-10 seconds, man, if you don't get that fish up, you're especially I'm using 20-pound braid, or I'm sorry, 15-pound braid, 20-pound mono, which around that type of structure, oyster beds and sharp objects off the pilings like metal and stuff like that, that'll break the line in an instant.
Yeah.
So you're using mono as a leader instead of fluorocarbon?
I'm old school. That's the other thing, man. I'll be honest, I came from nothing, man. Like growing up, man, I did not have money. So And it's funny. I never changed the way I fish. Like I use Walmart mono, the Zebco. You
Yeah,
get like
yeah.
300 yards for like $2.
Yep.
I think I have a few around here right now. In fact, look, the Omniflex. This is the old school.
There it is. Oh yeah.
I think
oh,
I
yeah.
have 3 of them in my truck.
And I'll tell you what. You talk to some of these snake oil salesmen that tell you got to have this fluorocarbon. You have to spend all this money. The fish don't have expensive taste. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that drives me nuts. And like that's the other thing with this YouTube channel. I do try and show people ways to save money because fishing can be expensive. The same with hunting. Like
Yep.
in the economy we're in now, like it's really driving a lot of people away from fishing because by the time you put in all the money for tackle, gas, fishing supplies, food, it's an expensive day.
It is.
I remember just, even if you go, I graduated high school in 2016. I used to love getting out of school, going buying a dozen night crawlers and going to catch bluegill, some white catfish, whatnot. That used to cost $2.99. I would buy a 6-pack of Eagle Claw snell hooks for 80 cents, a bobber or some split shots and worms, and I could hand them a $5 bill and walk out. The $5 bill don't even cover the night crawlers anymore.
Yeah.
I know it's insane. The only thing that survived this economy is Arizona iced tea. That's the only thing that's still
Yeah.
And they even went up a little bit.
No, they didn't. They said
did
they released a thing. They said we make enough money. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
keep it at 99 cents.
You wish more companies took that route, but that was
don't.
my thing too. Like I rarely buy bait. Like if it's something that I can't catch, I'll buy it. But all the bait you're seeing me use in these videos, I'm hand catching, especially like fiddlers, sand fleas.
Yeah.
In fact, I've been learning as you get older, like if you get a really bad day, blowout, like 30, 40 mile per hour winds, just unfishable conditions, I'll spend that day catching bait and freezing it for, the next trip. Or I have like a little like fiddler crab tank in my backyard that keep them back there until I use them for the next trip.
Oh, okay.
How much are bloodworms your way?
I couldn't tell you because so the last bloodworms I bought was 2 years ago. I bought a flat. 120 worms is $80. What I do, I preserve them. You put them in the freezer for a little bit just to chill them. Put a little bit of kosher salt on them, and then I bag them in like bags of like half a dozen because that's all I'll pretty much use, especially if they're salted. And that flat from 2 years ago still lasted me till today. But I've heard horror stories. I mean, down by me, the problem is people on vacation don't realize, and they're kind of like in vacation mode of
They'll
like
spend
spending
it.
money.
Yep.
$30 a dozen now.
I've heard they're getting to the point where they're separating them from sizes now. When we were kids,
Jumbos,
it was you asked a dozen bloodworms. You didn't ask for a dozen jumbos.
Yeah, they have jumbos and all that now.
And jumbos are like $40 a dozen, from what I hear.
Yeah, if that ever happens with night crawlers, I'm going to start digging them out of the cow turds in the
Yeah.
backyard again.
I actually
was a kid.
I was looking at a video on how you can raise them. You gotta build a box though.
It is insane though. That and sand fleas. I'll never understand people buying sand fleas. Like, unless you coming down for the day and you don't have it. That I understood. But if you live close enough where you catch them, dude, like the one bait shop by me was selling them for $40 a quart, which is, and
That's
people
a
were
lot.
buying. Yeah, and I'm thinking I could catch a quart of sand fleas by hand in less than 30 seconds. Like they're that plentiful on the beaches by us that you don't even need a rake. You just need a bucket and your hands.
Yeah, that was the hardest part about it when I attempted the sheep's head deal is I knew like sand fleas, what I thought was a preferred bait, and I talked to a couple guys, and every single one of them like, well, why don't you just go catch them? I said because I would have to leave an hour and a half earlier.
Yeah.
And
if you're towing a boat too, that in a beach town, it's not as easy.
No.
No, it's not even easy to park without one.
That I understand, but like there's so many local guys that'll pay that, and I'm thinking like, if you got 30 minutes to your name, you could go load up on bait and just freeze it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could probably catch a whole minnow bucket full of them in 20 minutes.
Oh yeah.
All right, you got anything else?
No, think that's it for now for me.
Joe, is there anything else you want to get covered while we're still recording?
Nah, just thank you guys for having me.
All right.
All right,
guys.
Yep, thank you.
See you.
Have a good one.
You too.
You too.